Have you ever stopped to think about what it takes for this team to finally break the curse? What if I told you that the next big move might be just one phone call away? Being a Leafs fan is like carrying an inheritance of glory that never quite arrives. Every summer, a new rumor renews a dream, and Mitch Marner's departure showed that even the most iconic pieces can change places overnight. Toronto is now a team in transition, rebuilding its identity after losing one of the most recognizable faces of the franchise. And that's why this rumor about a new top six winger is making so much noise. It's the hope of filling a void that still echoes through Scotiabank Arena. If you breathe Leafs Nation, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and hit the bell, because here we live every behind-the-scenes moment before anyone else. Heavy.com nailed it. The Toronto Maple Leafs have their eyes on a young forward to fill a spot on the front line. Brad Treliving, the general manager, wants to strengthen the top six names in the attack, and he's not holding back. The problem? The market is dry. The salary cap is tight. There's less than $5 million left after the first days of free agency. When you can't open the vault, creativity becomes a weapon. And those who know Treliving know he doesn't shy away from bold trades. Behind closed doors, the atmosphere is urgent. The front office feels the pressure from fans, who are still licking their wounds from yet another early playoff exit and Marner's departure. Standing still is giving credit to those who say Toronto will never go beyond. And inside the organization, options are limited. The young talent to include in a trade package is scarce, but the appetite for change is huge. The question is, who will be willing to give up a promising winger? And does the Leafs have enough ammo to convince them? Let's check out 4 top 6 forwards the Maple Leafs should have on their trade radar. Forward number 4, Bryan Rust, Pittsburgh Penguins. Can you imagine Brad Treliving and Kyle Dubas, two minds that know every inch of the Leafs' recent history, sitting at the same table trying to craft a trade that could change the fate of 2 franchises? For many Toronto fans, that would be almost poetic. A reunion of vision, philosophies, and, of course, negotiations that carry the weight of those who understand what this blue and white jersey means. And in the middle of this scenario emerges a name that, just by being mentioned, makes Leafs Nation stop and pay attention. Bryan Rust. After Mitch Marner's departure, the void in the attack was exposed. It's not just about losing a skilled player. It's losing someone who handled crucial minutes, who kept the offense alive when everything seemed to fall apart. And here comes a need. Heavy.com made it clear that Brad Treliving wants to reinforce the top 6 forwards. The general manager is looking for a top 6 winger. There's no room for shallow bets. It has to be someone ready to produce now. Does Bryan Rust make sense? Well, let's look at the facts. The 33-year-old right winger still has a long contract, guaranteed until 2027-28, and costs $5.1 million a year on the salary cap. That already says a lot. It's practically everything Treliving has left to maneuver after the first days of free agency. The tight cap is a reality, but so is Treliving's creativity. And if there's one detail that makes Rust a viable name, it's that he has no trade protection. In other words, the Penguins can move him whenever they want, if, of course, the package is worth it. But Rust is not just a number on the payroll. Last season, he scored 31 goals in 71 games, a mark that catches the attention of any team needing real depth in the attack. And if Toronto wants to dream big, it needs players who can deliver when the pressure rises. And here's the playoff history. 21 goals in 79 postseason games. A guy who has lifted the Stanley Cup twice knows exactly what it means to carry expectations in April, May, and maybe June. And the link to Dubas? That part is almost a story on its own. Kyle Dubas, now leading the Penguins, knows Toronto's prospects like no one else. After all, he helped pick and develop many of them. This adds an extra layer of trust and chess play to any negotiation between Leafs and Pens. Dubas knows the real value of every piece Toronto can offer. If Pittsburgh really decides to let Russ go, it's almost certain they'll want something that strengthens weak spots. And one of those is depth in goal. That's where Dennis Hildebrand comes in. Young, promising, and right in a position where the Pens might want more security for the coming years. Nothing is set, nothing guaranteed, but this clue is strong. A package that prioritizes quantity over quality can make sense of the Penguins, especially if Dubas wants to reinforce the core of prospects while keeping competitiveness around his veterans. For Toronto, the dilemma is the same as always. Is it worth sacrificing the future for a reinforcement that can have an immediate impact? Is it worth spending every cap dollar to bring a veteran who, in theory, has already lived what the Leafs still dream of experiencing? These are questions that hit deep for anyone who wears blue and white, because every fan knows patience is running out. Every year, the window seems to close a little more. And a move like this, even if not grand from the outside looking at just a name, might be exactly the piece missing to fit the offense. Now, without Marner, imagine Russ playing heavy minutes, helping on the penalty kill, showing newcomers how you play a playoff series. That's what Toronto misses. Experience that doesn't waver. And on the other side, Dubas knows every inch of the Leafs' weaknesses. He knows where to push, what to ask for. A negotiation like this is not just a player swap. It's pure chess. And even if this rumor is, for now, just an idea, it reveals a lot about the team's moment. It shows that Treliving doesn't want to sit on a roster that lost important pieces. It shows that Toronto still believes it's worth the risk to break the curse that haunts every generation of fans. So here's the question for you. Is Brian Russ really the piece that makes sense? Is it worth giving up young prospects like Dennis Hildebrand to bring in a 33-year-old winger who costs practically everything left on the cap? Or is it better to hold on, wait for another opportunity, and not shake a core that's already under pressure? Leave your opinion in the comments. I want to know who you put on the table if you were Brad Treliving. Forward number 3, Jonathan Marchessault, Nashville Predators. Can you imagine the scene? Scotiabank Arena packed, a cold playoff night, and there on the ice, side by side with Austin Matthews and Matthew Knies, appears Jonathan Marchessault, veteran, champion, used to playing when the game means everything. For many, this still sounds like a distant dream, but this rumor insists on poking Leafs fans right where it hurts, in the hope that never dies. Nashville, on the other hand, remains in a silence that puzzles everyone. To the surprise of many, the Predators barely made any moves this offseason. Many expected a full rebuild even before last season's trade deadline, but Barry Trotz stood still. And now, in a market that seems increasingly inflated by marginal players, Marchessault becomes a valuable asset. The 34-year-old veteran is no ordinary player. He scored 21 goals and totaled 56 points in 78 games last season, but it's his playoff resume that truly shines. 76 points in 102 postseason games. It's this experience that makes him a perfect target for a Toronto team that everyone knows struggles when the ice melts and the game gets dirty, physical, emotional. Since Mitch Marner left, the hole has become even more obvious. It's not just a spot on the wing. It's a leadership void in decisive nights. Someone who knows how to lift a cup when everything is against you. But nothing in this story is simple. Marchessault has a no-movement clause. He can veto any trade. Toronto, for many, is one of the toughest markets in the league. The pressure is suffocating. The spotlight never turns off. But here's the other side. How many veterans would refuse a chance to wear blue and white and have a real shot at winning another Stanley Cup? For Marchessault, who has already lifted the trophy, returning to compete in a huge, passionate market that breathes hockey 24/7 could be tempting. Of course, there's a contract. For years remaining, with a $5.5 million average annual value. For a 34-year-old, is that risky? Maybe. But look around. How many middling players signed millionaire deals this offseason? The market has gone wild. And with the salary cap projected to rise, this contract might not feel so heavy in 2 or 3 years. Think about the fit: Matthews, Knies, and Marchessault. A combination of youth, generational talent, and experience. A trio that could give the front line a completely new look. Matthew Knies, still trying to solidify his place as a playoff contributor. Austin Matthews, the face of franchise, but in need of more firepower beside him. And Marchessault, who's not afraid to play physical, to speak up in the locker room, to put his body on the line when the series tightens. Meanwhile, in Nashville, Barry Trotz plays the waiting game. For many insiders, this signals he hasn't yet decided whether to keep the group for another run or to dismantle it while he can still get value. That's where Toronto comes in, needing to be aggressive but careful. Because if you're going to invest heavily in a veteran, it has to be the right guy. You can't just bring anyone in to silence rumors. Marchessault carries the weight of a winner. And let's be honest, Toronto desperately needs winners. But think about the other side. What if Marchessault says no? He has that right. He can look at Nashville, the comfortable contract, the security of a team that doesn't pressure him like Toronto does. And Leafs Nation knows. When the front office knocks on the door, there's no room for doubt. It's all or nothing. What makes this rumor so fascinating is that it exposes the eternal dilemma of rooting for this team. Every summer, names appear. Some come true, others vanish into smoke. And in this back and forth, the city splits between those who want to rebuild slowly, keeping prospects, and those who believe it's time to spend it all to see if that flag finally rises to the Scotiabank Arena rafters. Maybe Marchessault won't solve everything, but he's the kind of player who changes the locker room atmosphere. He's a guy who's seen how to win, and perhaps more importantly, how to lose. He's the one who can come to Matthews and Knies in crunch time and say, breathe, hold on, play the right game. And that, in a series against Boston or Florida, might be worth every penny of that hefty contract. And what if Trotz agrees to pick up the phone? If Treliving, who has already shown plenty of courage to try and fix holes, decides to pull the trigger, then Leafs Nation, the next season could look very different. And you know it. When it comes to Toronto, every rumor has lived like a Game 7 goal. So tell me, would you make room for Marchessault? Is it worth investing 4 years in a veteran to bring that winning DNA to frontline? Or is it better to save cap space, wait for another chance, and give young players room to grow? Comment down below. I want to know where you stand on this. Forward number 2, Nazem Kadri, Calgary Flames. Can you imagine what it would mean for Leafs Nation to see Nazem Kadri back at Scotiabank Arena? After so many comings and goings, memorable moments, and controversies, this possibility emerges as a twist that stirs the emotions of every fan. Mitch Marner leaves, Kadri returns. It almost sounds like a movie script. But for the fan who follows every rumor, every move behind the scenes, this story is already starting to take shape. In Calgary, the atmosphere is tense yet full of possibilities. General Manager Craig Conroy holds a heavyweight player, a 34-year-old center who led the team last season with an impressive 67 points in 82 games, including 35 goals. A number that shows not only Kadri's offensive capability, but also his importance within the team. And his contract? A commitment of $7 million per season, valid through 2028 to 29, tied to a no-movement clause that could complicate any negotiation, but doesn't make a return impossible. The weight of Kadri's history with the Leafs can't be ignored. For many fans, he symbolizes tough moments, playoff suspensions, costly penalties, and a bitter aftertaste. But it's impossible to forget that he's a Stanley Cup winner, a player who knows what it means to carry pressure and shine when everything is on the line. What makes this rumor even more exciting is exactly that duality, the perfect reunion between a troubled past and the hope for a better future. In Coach Craig Berube's view, Kadri could find his best game again. Berube is known for valuing players with grit, intensity, and who aren't afraid to bother opponents. This combination could be perfect for a team like the Leafs, which seeks balance and strength on the front line. Kadri's experience and combative style might be the seasoning missing for a roster that needs to overcome challenges and go further in the coming seasons. But none of this depends solely on him or the coach. Everything revolves around John Tavares, a key piece in this puzzle. What Tavares decides could define Toronto's path for the next season. If he's open to playing wing full-time, then Kadri could fit perfectly as a second-line center, forming alongside Austin Matthews a duo capable of balancing talent, physicality, and experience. A scenario that would give the Leafs a new dynamic down the middle and could boost the team's performance. On the other hand, if Tavares prefers to stay as center, priorities change completely. It wouldn't make sense for Toronto to overload the center position, which is already crowded. In that case, Brad Treliving would likely focus on finding a high-quality winger, and Kadri would cease to be a priority, since the wing position would require someone different. This dilemma makes the Leafs' future even more uncertain, with strategic decisions that could define the entire season. Another crucial point is the Flames' willingness to trade Kadri, especially with Brad Treliving, his former general manager. This relationship could open doors or close negotiations, depending on the alignment between the two teams. Calgary sees Kadri as a leader and consistent producer, and would not give him up without a package that truly compensates for the loss. So the negotiation needs to be carefully thought out, with interest and willingness from both sides to reach an agreement. For Leafs fans, this rumor stirs deep feelings. Many feel nostalgic for Kadri's strength and momentum, while others recall the difficult moments and disagreements that marked his previous stints. This mix of emotions creates an intense and polarized atmosphere, which only raises the expectation and debate around the team's future. What's at stake is much more than a trade or signing. It's a decision that could symbolize the Leafs' desire to become competitive again and to try, once more, to overcome the obstacles that have prevented winning the Stanley Cup. It's a test for front office, for the players, and for the fans who live this emotional roller coaster year after year. And you, passionate fan, what do you think about this possibility? Do you believe Kadri can come back and help the team go further? Do you think he could be the ideal complement for Matthews and maybe for Tavares playing wing? Or would you prefer the team to look for a winger to strengthen the attack and keep Tavares a center? These are questions only time and the front office's decisions will answer. Meanwhile, there's no shortage of debate and anticipation. Leave your comment below. Tell us your opinion and join this conversation made for all of Leafs Nation. Forward number 1, Nino Niederreiter, Winnipeg Jets. Imagine the NHL backstage movement with Nick Ehlers already on his way to the Carolina Hurricanes. This leaves the Winnipeg Jets in a delicate position, urgently needing to fill an important winger spot. For the Leafs, who are always alert to opportunities, this window could open with Nino Niederreiter, a name that, despite an inconsistent performance last season, has a potential and profile that could perfectly fit Coach Craig Berube's philosophy and the front office strategy led by Brad Treliving. Niederreiter stands 1.88 meters tall and is known not just for his size, but for the physical and aggressive style he brings to the ice. Last season, despite scoring only 17 goals, below expectations for a player of his caliber, he showed flashes of the player he could be in 2025 to 26, especially after a solid playoff run with the Jets. The fact that he registered 151 hits throughout the season is more than just a number. It clearly indicates the intensity and commitment he can offer. something Berube values immensely. He wants players who don't just play with skill, but who aren't afraid to sweat it out, to battle for every puck like it's the last one. Niederreiter's contract is another important point to consider. With 2 years remaining and an annual value of $4 million, he represents a relatively low-risk bet for Toronto, especially in a scenario where the salary cap is a constant juggling act. Moreover, the fact that he has no trade protection makes the negotiation process easier, paving the way for Brad Treliving to work toward bringing this reinforcement without so many complications. However, as with every negotiation, the power lies in the hands of the Jets' general manager, Kevin Cheveldayoff. What would Toronto be willing to offer? Nick Robertson and Bobby McMann, young and promising forwards, appear as possible trade pieces. They represent the future, while Niederreiter is more of a player with experience and the ability to make an immediate impact. This trade, therefore, isn't just about numbers, but about balancing the present and future of both franchises. Another decisive factor in the equation is the salary cap space the Jets still have, with $19 million free. Winnipeg has a capacity to make strategic moves, but needs to carefully weigh every step, so as not to compromise its financial planning and team competitiveness. Eller's departure opened space, but also created an urgency to sign reinforcements that keep the team strong and competitive next season. In this context, Niederreiter could be the piece that fits perfectly. For the Leafs, who seek not only talent, but also players who bring intensity and grit, Niederreiter could be the answer. On a team where physicality and the ability to battle on the ice make a difference, he could be the player who puts his heart into the fight, helps hold off opponents, and maintains constant pressure, especially in decisive games. An athlete who understands the importance of every play and gives his all until the very last second. But, of course, nothing is guaranteed. Negotiations are complex and depend on several factors beyond talent and the desires of the parties involved. It's a delicate dance between the needs of Toronto and Winnipeg, between the players' wishes and the general manager's planning. Every move can influence the team's futures, roster composition, and, of course, the hopes of the fans. You, Leafs fan, what do you think about this possibility? Do you believe Niederreiter can bring the balance the team needs on the wing? Or would you rather see Toronto keep betting on youngsters like Nick Robertson and Bobby McMann, hoping they grow and take on bigger roles? This decision could define the team's course for the coming seasons. Don't forget to share your opinion in the comments. And of course, don't forget to leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to always stay on top of the latest news, rumors, and analyses about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Here, you follow everything up close together with Leafs Nation, living every detail of this saga in pursuit of the long-awaited title. If this negotiation comes to life, get ready for a new chapter in the Leafs' history, a chapter that could mark the start of a season full of emotion, grit, and who knows, the path to the much-desired Stanley Cup.